and I'm going to get this recording started, and then we are going to check out a recent performance here by the 78th Frasers from Ontario, of course, and they did really well over the weekend. And we have Robbie Beaton here to have a little chat with us about it. So here we go. All right, the microphone is now unmuted. That is Robbie Beaton there, everyone, Pipe Sergeant of 78th Frasers. And I'm going to be tying a bag on in the background as we do this. But Robbie, why don't we just listen through the performance the first time? And then you can give us your overall impressions and how things went, and we'll try and help people out. So yeah, you're just going to control this screen.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. Sweet.
Alrighty.
And you can pop those headphones on if you want to hear better. So your mic is live, but if you want to mute it, you can do that down in the controls. All right. Are we back on?
We are back on.
Cool. So we're hanging here with Robbie Beaton, who's pipe sergeant of this very band, the 78th Frasers. And I just kind of thought, I'm here helping him get a bag tied on here. So I just kind of thought that maybe we could chat a little bit about that performance. And obviously it went pretty well. I think you were straight firsts.
Yep, straight firsts.
In that, which is kind of like probably a little bit rare in the Ontario scene because there's a lot of other really pretty well-known bands going on there. It's pretty rare to get a unanimous decision like that. So, what do you think? What do you think went so well? Like, what are you guys doing really well at the moment? What happened in that performance to make it such a success? And then maybe later we can get into things that you might still want to improve on.
I think a couple things which we've been working on throughout this year has been the warm-up, and the previous contests have been extremely warm, over 90 degrees, and very dry, which everybody knows it makes setting pipes and pipe bands really difficult. So this past weekend in Kincardine, the location and venue's right on the water. It was, you could see by the recording, there was some good shade. So we had some moisture in the air, it was cooler, all those things, and a really good tune-up that for us we found was shorter, which is obviously what we're going to have to do come Scotland time when it's cooler temperature and damp, so it was good practice for us doing that as well. And then I think just the usual stuff, I thought the sound was good and held throughout. I thought the playing was tidy, and the biggest thing that we talk about is continuously progressing throughout each contest, and since the start of the year we've done that, so from all those aspects we're very happy.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So you mentioned a couple things which I think to guys like you and me seems pretty obvious, like when it's hot it's really hard to get a good sound, and a little shade is good. I'm just picturing a lot of people that are going to be viewing this content later, and when we talk about the warm-up, what are these key elements that we're really looking for, and why is shade better than sun, and why is it, can you go a little bit more in depth into that? Why is it that Scotland is such a more dangerous place to tune up, and just give us some of the info there, without
Yep.
giving away the you don't have to give away the secret sauce or anything.
Right. So with it being really hot and dry in Ontario, play sheepskin bags and cane drone reeds, the stability is always an issue because the bags need moisture, the drone reeds need moisture in order to be stable, and obviously so do the channel reeds. So when there's no moisture, when there's no humidity or moisture in the air, and you're playing out in the sun, the pipes never quite stabilize, and when you do that on your own, that's a problem in itself. But when you've got 20 plus guys that you've got to keep track of, everybody knows that when you're going and playing a solo contest, you try and tune up in the same location as where you're going to play in terms of sun versus sun or shade versus shade, and it becomes increasingly difficult when you add more bagpipes into the mix and you're trying to manage all these different variables. And so, compared to Scotland, where humidity's high, temperature is cooler, the bagpipes are going to be more stable from the get-go. You don't have to play them quite as much as you do over here, but the problem over there is sometimes too much moisture, which can cause havoc on the pipes in that way, which is something that we've, as a band, have had to deal with, learning the correct way to deal with, and as the years go on. It's a big transition going from the weather over here to over there, and so that's kind of one of the big aspects that led to a good performance this past weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think that, it's just such an interesting thing. One of the things you mentioned to me, and I don't know if you've already mentioned it here on this particular live cast, but you mentioned that you really didn't have to do much playing on the actual day, right? Which is such a valuable thing. that comes from a lot of preparation leading up, right? Like you guys have tuned the instruments pretty much the exact same way with the exact same method, how many times, leading up to the day, which allows you to not have to do that. And I think one of the things about Scotland too is that a lot, not a crazy amount, but enough with the instrument is going to change due to like the different, the different spot on the globe, the different conditions, maybe slightly different altitude, maybe, I don't know, but like all these different things. And you get off the plane and the bagpipe isn't quite right, is it? Like it changes and then you have to adapt, you have to make those changes, and then you have to somehow get into that routine within a few days such that you can show up to the Worlds and not have to do a lot of playing because, as you were just pointing out, you can't play that much without moisture becoming a major factor. And like that's the real name of the game for you guys as you prepare the bagpipe, the bagpipes themselves for the Scotland trip, right?
That's right, and it's a quick turnaround. We find every year the same things every year in terms of how hot it is in Ontario. And then, we've got one more contest next weekend, and then Maxville. Maxville's traditionally really hot. And then 3 days later, we fly to Scotland and have to play the following weekend in North Berwick. So realistically, we go from 85 degrees plus at Maxville to having to adjust our tune-up slightly and get the bagpipes acclimated to Scottish weather by the following Saturday and make sure that they're up to standard and going to set us up the way we want for the Worlds the following week.
Right, that's the tricky bit, right, is you don't just have to get the pipes ready. Like that is by far the most difficult contest of the year so far because you're up against bands like Shots.
Right.
And Inverary. Field Marshal won't go to that, but you're up against quite a few of like the actual contenders to win the Worlds, and obviously you guys want to be in that position too.
Right.
So it's like, you've got to switch gears fast and make that happen, and I think that's kind of interesting.
I think the biggest thing which everybody knows about is attention to individual bagpipes. Those 2 days after we get to Scotland, there's a ton of time spent, a lot of time those first 2 days, making sure that individual bagpipes are set up correctly and efficiently. And they would be done the same way that you guys who are tuning in have been, it's been talked about on here before, the proper way to set up an efficient bagpipe that's 100% airtight and is going to tune the way and react the way we want. So things like that really never change, but it's just for us and what we're going for are paramount once we get over there.
Awesome. We don't have any questions so far, but I was kind of thinking, Robbie, maybe we could go through the recording again now.
Yep.
And maybe you could just give us some commentary maybe on some of the stuff that you would like to see be improved. I know between you and Doug, you probably have a laundry list at this point.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
Again, I don't want you to give away the farm, but got to give us a little bit of suspense.
Yes.
But where are some of the spots that you think can be improved? I'm actually pretty interested here, and
no problem.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that if you're going to talk at the same time as the audio, you can see the two different levels down there. You just want to make sure that your microphone is like equal, if not a little bit higher than the desktop audio, because otherwise people wouldn't be able to hear it.
Okay.
But you might be pausing and then making comments anyway.
True.
But just
Okay.
keep an eye on that little metric there,
All right.
and we'll go forward.
I will start this over again. All right.
Are you hearing it in your headphones?
Yep. All right, thought the intro was good. Well blown E. The only thing that I hear right off the bat was the pipe section very, very slightly early to the first beat of Balmoral Highlanders, which could be a recording thing because I didn't hear it out there, but it's coming across in the recording, so. Alright, third part and fourth part so that everyone can listen. I'll pay attention to both of these. I'm going to pause that for 1 second. Personally, listening to that recording many times, and while I was out there, and came across on the sheets, and they're 100% accurate. Round playing by the pipe section in parts 3 and 4, and it really just comes down to untidy fundamentals. The third part, there's a sequence of Torluas on low A, and then GDEs on low G, that kind of question and answer each other, even though the notes are different. I felt out there and listening back to the recording that we were early and not waiting for the Torluas the way we were for the GDEs. So it kind of gave this round impression that hurt the ensemble a little bit compared to the rest of the tune. And then in the fourth part, I thought we collected ourselves on the pickup notes, but then we have a G grace note to B grip, ha, and da-da-da. That happens a couple times throughout that part, and I thought the same thing. I thought that we rushed those and were not dialed in with the drum corps, and that's it's you could call it adrenaline, nerves, whatever you want to call it, but you can hear, if you really listen, that they were early and kind of made both of these parts sound a little bit round compared to the first two parts and how we finished the tune. So I will press play and let it continue. Thought the drums were very good throughout. Thought sound and blowing were very good throughout, and that can be a combination of just everything that we talked about earlier. If you listen to the Torluas and the Straspé, they're significantly better than the third part of the march. Just waiting for that first beat. A little sloppy on the runs going up in that part. Alright, in this part coming up, listen to beat 3. Beat 3 in the first 2 or 3 bars, in my opinion, was rushed compared to everything else in the parts previous, which again gives it that round not tidy enough feel. Good break and nice control so far. A little pushy in those last 2 bars. Same here, just a little bit too round, not waiting for upbeats enough. All right.
Sweet.
I guess the only other thing I could say was I felt the last 2 bars of the reel could have had a little bit more composure. It kind of, at least to me, listening back to that, it didn't feel that way out there, but it felt like the last 2 bars were almost as if everyone had the feeling of, thank God, we're almost done. You lost the phrasing a little bit, but that's super picky.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like, it's one of the things I've trained myself to do, which is, it's not so much I'm pretending there's more, because that could be risky too, because you don't want to blow the cutoff, but like, I really try to train myself to find absolutely nothing interesting or special at all about those last couple bars, and to just play them, and then when I get to the end, I just stop my pipes.
Yep.
I feel like, even in very top level bands, people have the wrong mental approach to the end of a set, right? Like, oh my God, here comes the end, oh my God, here we go. And then you end up in trouble, don't you? Like, for sure, I definitely noticed that.
Yeah,
I
and
definitely noticed what you're saying.
it's something that we work on quite a bit, and it's improved a ton. So in that respect, personally are happy, but you can hear it on the recording that extra little bit of focus until the very end will just make it sound so much more complete.
Absolutely. So a person named Jesse Short is commenting in, saying, so 78th is a grade 1 pipe band. What is the build of the individual players at, if you compare it to like a solo level? Are there a lot of grade 2 or 3 pipers solo, or is almost everyone grade 1 or so at an individual level? Very common question.
Very
right?
good question.
Like, do you have to be a grade 1 soloist to play in a grade 1 band?
No, you don't, but you have to have, you don't, in our band, it's all grade 1 or professional players, but if someone came to me and said, hey, I think I can do this, and you've got the proper fundamentals and are willing to learn and can progress from that point of view, you certainly could play if you're the right kind of player that has the proper attitude about it.
And the two things, like solo grades and band grades, they're not really equivalents, right?
No.
Like, they don't really relate to each other, although, if you're going to be in a grade 1 band, it's pretty rare at this point to be in a successful grade 1 band and not have vast majority grade 1 and open players.
Yes.
But for example, there's grade 2 pipe bands is maybe a better example, where you can have professional grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, like good grade 4 players even in a grade 2 band, and that would probably be fairly common. If they were to go up and play in the solos, like they could be graded anywhere.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's a different kind of ball game, and I think where I'd like to segue this question to as well is, so you guys are obviously a very competitive grade 1 band, but are there any sort of universal things that people at beginner and intermediate levels can take away from what you guys are doing. Like, for example, you mentioned individual preparedness. Isn't that a universal thing that everybody can learn from? And if anything, one of the things that makes Grade 1 bands successful, in my opinion, and I'm sure you'll agree, is just that, is just the degree to which individuals are taking care of their instrument and developing and working on their own playing as well.
Yes. Preparedness and I'm lost my train of thought. But I keep coming back to fundamentals. Like, if you've got good fundamentals in terms of technique, you've got good fundamentals in terms of bagpipe maintenance, understanding how to set up your instrument properly, you're going to be ahead of the game down the road. Because, for me, I learned and I'm still learning, but it's passing that on to the other guys so that they they have that same kind of attitude about everything. We spend a lot of time on instruments and how to set them up properly, but it's not the type of situation where we take their bagpipes and do it for them. We show them how to do it so they can do it themselves. They know how to properly do it. And then individual technique. We ask guys to send recordings all the time. We ask guys to practice individual technique like Torla's, just like many of you need to do at home. I need to do at home. So there's a lot of similar characteristics, even though, yes, this is Grade 1, that you can take away to other grade bands.
Even in Grade 1, I think that one of the things that separates the men from the boys, for lack of a better expression, is that some bands are working harder than others, but not like at the practice hall.
No.
Some bands maybe spend less time at the practice hall, but individuals are figuring it out and getting everything right.
Yep.
Better than other bands. When I think about Field Marshal Montgomery, for example, that springs to mind instantly, which is player for player, those guys are working hard and really, really focused on individual excellence.
Yes.
And I think that's the name of the game. A lot of people, when you go around the games, take a Grade 3 band or something, they're getting third in Grade 3 and they're moping. But the answer is right in front of them, which is you just have to work harder. Individuals have to do more to get better, right? To me, that's clear as day.
Well, and that's one of the biggest things that, you hit the nail on the head. It's one of the biggest things that we've focused on. We came back from Scotland last year, personally, and we played well, didn't qualify, came back and kind of had a renewed commitment to individual effort. We practice a lot, but there's been a renewed effort to do more one-on-ones, send more recordings, take more pride in your instrument, and it's, from my point of view and the product that we're putting out there, it's coming across in a positive way and significantly better thus far. So individual assessment and practice is paramount no matter what grade.
Cool. Let's see if we have any more questions. Gord says, perhaps this was already asked, what's the band setup currently used? You don't have to answer that question. You're not under oath.
No, that's a good question.
There's another questions. There's a couple other questions coming after that. Sweet. Thanks for questioning, guys. Ask away. We're here to interact. So, thanks very much.
Yep. To answer your question, Gord, we are playing Sheepskin and cane drone reeds, and we're playing the G1 higher pitched chanter. Found that the Sheepskin tonally gives us what we're looking for, and fairly recently switched to cane drone reeds, which is completely changed our sound in a positive way. So
I mean, with the cane dronery, it's like, it's one of those. I feel like it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but like, why aren't cane drones? I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yes.
I'm playing cane drones right now, also. But isn't that more hassle than it's worth? Like, are you crazy? Why do you do that when there's so many other like droneries that are much easier to use?
Well, and that's been the issue for us for years. Is we would get the drones in tune, but they didn't have that sparkle, I guess is the kind of the word that I hear, that I've heard fairly recently.
Or like warmth.
Warmth, the harmonics that bands like Field Marshal, Inverary, and St. Lawrence O'Toole get. And for what we are trying to do, we want to go over and be competitive and push those top bands, and thus push ourselves to make that top 6 list. And the way that we have found to do that is through this setup. And yeah, they can be a hassle, but they're going to be a hassle if they're not set up properly or managed correctly.
That's right.
Which has been a learning experience for us in a great way, because we spent a lot of time setting them up correctly. We didn't rush anything, and then they've performed for us regardless of the weather very well, and I believe they'll continue to do so, so long as we stick to our game plan and manage them properly for the remaining contests in Scotland, most importantly.
Here's one of the things I sort of have thought to myself a couple times, which is, if you really sit down and think about it, and it's at the grade 1 level, right? Where you're talking about the very best pipe bands in the world. Cane drone reeds might be a hassle sometimes, but synthetic drone reeds, at the end of the day, are guaranteed to become a hassle at a certain point. There's no getting around it. It's just basic science. As soon as moisture starts condensing in your instrument, synthetic reeds are no longer useful, and you're no longer going to be able to get them in tune.
Well, that's just it.
And then meanwhile, if you can get cane zoned in and manage it correctly, it can be magic. Yeah, it might be a hassle. Especially if things aren't set up right, it can definitely be a negative thing. But it might also be, if you do it right, it's going to be magic.
Right, and the combination of setting them up correctly, and this is the next biggest point for me, causing everyone else to coming back to this, focus individually on playing their instruments at home to make sure that they maintain their proper setup and stability, will create magic that synthetic reeds will ultimately, like you said, eventually just deteriorate in some way or form, which is what's happened to us and many other bands, I'm sure, that have played them. So,
yeah, for sure. All right, next question. Billy says, John McCain, are the recordings mandatory? How many times during the week are you in contact with other pipers?
Recordings are mandatory in terms of, so we've got a couple long distance guys that send them once a week, and then everyone else either meets up with myself or Doug and does a one-on-one every other week, or they send recordings every other week and they attend band practice. And it's just something that we started in the fall and have had great luck with, and have continued, because it makes, I wouldn't say people hide, because you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time it allows us to, and them, because we will listen to them together, be critical of their recordings, and we can go through them together. And everybody does it. I do it. Doug does it. There's no exceptions. So,
leading by example.
Yes, everyone is required to do it, and it just depends whether you're there every week or if how often you can be there. So, good question.
Really good question, and I think that it all depends on the player. One of the things that maybe most people don't realize about your band and a lot of grade 1 bands is, what percentage of people in the band are actually coming to practice on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, we have...
for example, right now, we're having this conversation in Albany, New York, which is where we both live. And you don't actually live all that close to the band, right?
No, so I travel once a month to band in Toronto, which is about 6 hours. And we have practice once a month, Friday night, Saturday, all day, and Sunday. On the other Sundays, throughout the month, the regular guys will have band for 3 or 4 hours. And then as the season approaches, we'll add extra practices. For example, because we've got the majority of our band is in town, and attendance is really good. But we've got 5 guys that we call out-of-towners. So we have these 2 days, and then we'll have band Sunday, like I said. And then as the season approaches, the Friday night before a contest, we'll have band. We'll play Saturday, and then we'll also have band on Sunday. And what that just maximizes our time together. And we are at a disadvantage, I would say, compared to the bands we want to, be in contention with, as they live so much closer and can practice twice a week, which is part of the reason why we've opted to go with mandatory recordings, because the other bands in Scotland or Ireland can meet so regularly and do so much more than we can in that respect.
Yeah, they have out-of-towners too, I think.
Yep.
For example, I'm an out-of-towner with Inveraray District, and so it's a little bit crazy, but it's sort of a different thing, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
It's sort of a different thing just because the core of the group is definitely, able to practice more often, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, we also have, next up, oh wow, look at all these questions. Billy says, I'm a student piper and wondering the best way to ease into the pipes. This is a big question. I find myself able to play tunes, but as I get towards the end of a tune or playing a higher note, my chanter gives out. Why is that? Is it my reed? Is it that I don't have the lung capacity, or just need to fix my mechanics? It's kind of a good question.
It's a really good question.
And, I think that, even though that, it seems like that's a beginner question, it's also it goes all the way to the top, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I think the bottom line, for me, is going to be mechanics. But
Yep. No, me too. Making sure that your instrument is set up 100% efficiently for you. And then at that point, I would go to, if everything's set up properly, like your drone reeds are taking the proper amount of air, they've been calibrated properly, your bag is 100% airtight, your chanter reed isn't too hard for you, and your instructor has made sure of all of these other things, then I would look to personal mechanics and making sure that the way that you're playing in terms of the blowing to squeezing ratio is the proper amount and you're not blowing too much or vice versa. But I would look at your first things first, I would look at the mechanics of the instrument and then move on to what you might be doing when you're playing the instrument.
Yeah, what you're describing to me is a very common phenomenon as well, which is when you use the left hand, okay, otherwise known as the high notes, as you described, especially for beginners who aren't used to things yet, when you use the left hand, you have a tendency to lose control over the squeezing aspect of keeping the pipes going. And, that has given rise to the myth that certain notes take more air than other notes, but it's all psychological, and it's going to take practice on the mechanics of steady blowing, because there's something going on in your brain, and it's not just you, it's like tons and tons of beginners, which is whenever we get up onto the left hand, we lose that air support, because the squeezing arm, stops behaving the way that we want it to. So that's the sort of thing that we're going to have to iron out in order for you to become a better player. And you just start simple, play simple tunes or simple exercises very slowly that go from the bottom hand and work its way up to the left hand. And we need to try to practice out, these issues that are arising, I think,
Yep.
So, Billy, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Robbie's stuck here until I'm done tying in his bag, so
Yeah.
he can't go anywhere. I mean,
I'm waiting. Keep them coming. This is good.
James says, how much time do you tune up as a band before you go onto the line before going into the circle? Like, can you walk us through, more or less the exact timings of what happened at this particular contest?
Yeah, we tend to, we tend to get together as a pipe section about, not to give away a couple things because I'm getting a lot of questions actually on my own about what we do. But we get together about an hour and 20 minutes or so before we play. We put a little bit of air through the pipes just to give them some initial moisture. And then at this one, we got together, I believe it was 35 minutes technically before we were set to compete. In this instance, all we did was we played in the shade because that's where we were competing. Put some air through the pipes until they were stable. In this case, I can't remember. I believe it was really quick. It was probably between 7 and 10 minutes.
The pipes get stable fast in that environment.
Yeah, it was really quick. And at that point, like I said earlier, there really wasn't much to do in terms of fine-tuning.
Why not? Why wasn't there much to do?
Because we had done so much preparation leading up to this. In terms of just fine-tuning the instruments. Like I said, 2 weeks before this, we played a contest called Coburg. We had band Friday night, competed Saturday, had band on Sunday. I did some one-on-ones throughout the next week. There was band on Sunday, and then the Friday night before this contest, we had band practice, and then we competed again, so we met a lot. And so, yeah, through preparation, there really wasn't much to do at all. We let the pipes stabilize. And then at that point, it was just brief playing until we competed, maintaining, the sound at which the pipes stabilized. And I would say, personally, I check all the channers for the most part that I know need to be checked. And I would say I probably played a grand total before we competed about 15 to 17 or 18 minutes, which was, ballpark, but it was not a lot.
Yeah, to clarify, the tune-up might have taken 90 minutes.
Right.
But the actual play time on the instruments is very minimal.
Yes.
Having to do with really good preparation before the event, right?
Right. And like we talked about earlier, all the weather conditions and everything and preparation led up to this point. If we hadn't put in the time or the weather was poor, there's always going to be more work to do. And I'm sure everyone will agree that leads to uneasiness or nerve. It will not help the nerves. And that's one of the biggest takeaways.
It totally is, right? Like, I just, especially now that I'm not tuning a group anymore and I'm playing an Inverary, like, it's almost like you can get into a sort of zone. You have to still be aware because you have to try and perform well. But, like, it's almost like boredom, almost.
Oh, yeah.
Except for that you're so excited. But, like, you stand around and you just kind of wait, for all the pipes to settle and nothing is frantic, and then you can almost, I say almost because you're always going to get that adrenaline rush, but you can almost get to the line in a sort of peaceful sense, right? And that's that's what paves the way for good performances.
That's exactly right. Good question.
Yeah, great question. Vince Janowski, do you think the recording critiques and one-on-ones make a big difference when you consider, quote, what it takes for a band, say in grade 3 or 2, to progress to the next level? In other words, how often do you think grade 3 and 2 bands do this that you know about? And maybe we should also add how much they should do it.
Yeah, I don't think they, from the groups I have worked with in the past, I don't think they do it enough. I see, and you can tell because I'll go to the games and kind of just walk around while I kill time because we always play so late, and you just see panic, I guess, or uneasiness, and it's always like, you look at what time it is, and you kind of just, you have a mental map of how the days and different grades are progressing, and you quickly realize that many bands play so much on the day because they are frantic in trying to get a good sound that could be they could get through better preparation, and then you can just hear it through the recordings. The one-on-ones just make people more confident when they go out there, and so those two things, if you are not prepared enough individually and as a band, and you're worrying about maybe your own issues, you're not going to have a confident run. So I think more recordings and one-on-ones, regardless of the grade, will help a lot.
I think you can step back and look at how most, not all, but most grade 3 and 2 bands are comprised of vast majority local players.
Yes.
So, but what happens is you end up getting flipped, where you end up coming to band practice once or twice a week even for some motivated bands, but all they do is sort of stand around in a circle and like keep playing their bagpipes over and over again, where what they really should do is break things down and work with individuals on what the individuals need work on. Like, I think that's the number one thing bands don't do. So for some bands, and you can tell me if you agree, Robbie, but recordings probably aren't necessary because you're able to get together so frequently.
Absolutely.
But one-on-one work with individuals is severely lacking in these bands, where if they did more of that, whether it be with the pipe major or whoever the experts are in the band, or getting outside help to work with individuals, that's the name of the game.
Yep, and to piggyback off of that, because it's all, I couldn't agree more, to piggyback off of that, it's got to be one-on-ones, and really there needs to be more focused work. I know a lot of groups even in grade 2 and below that get together and they're at band and they play through the stuff 20 times expecting it to get better.
Right.
And it doesn't, because they're not focusing on the right things.
Or anything.
Or anything, right.
Yeah.
It's really just kind of going through the motions to say, yeah, I went to band, instead of practicing that stuff that needs to be touched on.
Absolutely. Are the recordings submitted on bagpipes or practice chanter?
Well, early in the year for us, it's on practice chanter, just because of new music. Again, individual technique. I know, we go around and we know what everyone needs to work on. But by about January, it's all bagpipes.
Sure.
All bagpipes.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So, next question. So back to, Billy had a follow-up question here. And by the way, all of these questions are good. This is a beginner question, but we're stoked to have Robbie here to answer it. So, he finds it easier to wet his reed with warm water, but find it has deteriorated my reed at a more rapid rate. Granted, there is also a little chip on each side. Could that be the cause of it giving out? So, first of all, do you wet your reed with warm water?
I do not.
No, me either. Like, I sometimes, when it's, when I'm playing in my house with air conditioning, I'll give it a little bit of a lick to maybe just get some moisture in the reed. But even that, like on performance day, where things really count, I don't do that. And instead, I let the bagpipe really soak things in and acclimatize, because the water can just be too much of a shock to the reed, right?
That's exactly right.
And it can just and it can cause deterioration for sure. Now, granted, Billy, you got to get a reed with no chips in it, for
Yes.
sure. And if you want to moisten the reed a little bit with your tongue, that's fine. But the bottom line is, you can't blame the reed on the need to develop that blowing technique, right?
Yeah, and I find what I do occasionally, like Andrew said, if I'm playing in air conditioning, which I tell all the guys in the band to avoid doing this at all costs because it dries the pipes out. But that's a super anal picky thing. But if during the winter time, for example, it's really dry up in Canada, what I'll have the guys do is blow through their reed so it sounds the high A. And what I've found is it avoids licking it, which will eventually deteriorate it, but it also gets the blades vibrating and warming up a little bit, which is also what we want. So, like Andrew said, the next biggest thing is really getting a reed that's not chipped, that will be efficient.
Yeah, finding a good reed,
Yeah.
for sure. And because the chip can definitely cause the reed to not sound good. And obviously, if we're going to be doing all this work, we want to sound good.
Right.
But the bottom line is, we've got to analyze what's happening to us as we get onto that left hand that's causing us to sort of give out. And it takes, guess what? Like, you know what the bottom line is at the end of the day? You just have to do it for like 1,000 hours.
Yep.
By the time you've done it 1,000 hours, even if you don't even really know what you're doing at first very much, like, that's the name of the game, is just doing a lot of it. I think sometimes we practice for like 20, 30, even an hour a day, and we want to be good, you know, by the end of the week. And that's just not real. It's just going to take lots and lots of time and patience.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit more patience than we'd like to offer. The same is true for my golf game, so I know how much it hurts to suck, even when you...
Yeah.
Suck is not the right word to use. Certainly not very politically correct, but I know what it feels like to not be good, even though you feel like you put lots of time in and you should be good. It's just one of those things that's going to take time. And,
Yes.
Good. So, Billy, I hope that helps out. Let's give 30 more seconds for any more questions, but then we'll venture towards wrapping this thing up. So, guys, let me know if you have any further questions. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll give it just a couple seconds. So, Robbie, when we're done, you just press the stop streaming button and the stop recording button.
Yep.
I think we're good. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you soon on another live stream. Make sure you're subscribed to the live feed if that's an option for you. And we'll see you again soon.
Cool, guys. Thank you.
See ya. Bye for now.
Bye.